Whitley, episode 3.
We are back
We
again.
are back again. You better get used to it. Welcome to Erin Wit, the show you didn't know you could live without until about 3 weeks ago, and now you can't get rid of us.
We're here to stay.
Always.
3 episodes in.
Yeah. We're on a roll.
We are.
Consistency is key, baby. And we're doing that. I'm Erin.
I'm Whitley.
And we got a lot to talk about today.
We do have a lot to talk about. Coming up on today's episode, we have to dive in to the Shedeur drama that happened this previous week. Can't overlook that. Also, is the Kaminga era ending in Golden State?
Is it? Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I think it is. But we'll get more into that.
Yeah.
And then, Erin, we got to talk about one of your favorite players and how dirty they are. No, we are going to talk some more about the villain, Dillon Brooks.
Yes, Dillon the Villain. Oh, my gosh. A lot to talk about all these topics.
A lot.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so obviously, we'll just jump in. Shedeur Sanders, not a villain. They tried to make him into a villain.
They sure did.
Oh.
They sure did. Multiple people.
Just about every team in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Just about.
Entire, I feel like, league. The entire NFL.
Literally, I did not like how they treated Shedeur Sanders.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. And I also know we're going to talk about a little bit later on that, Deion, you've had history with him.
I have had history with Deion Sanders. I've met him a couple times, and we'll, of course, get into that in story time. But absolutely
Great start.
Yes. Okay. Period. See, mic drop. Said we're dropping laptops. Okay?
Laptop drop. Turn back on.
Drop.
Oh, we're good. Okay.
No, we're good. So, obviously, when it came to Shedeur, there was a lot of controversy around the situation with the fact that most people projected that he would be a top 10 draft pick, possibly a top 4 or a top 5 draft pick. And he ended up being drafted at 144, which was crazy in the 5th round. So the question is, obviously, why?
I think it has a lot to do with his dad. And I think it's so sad.
So many guys that have spots in the NFL right now are connected to their fathers who had spots in the NFL or their fathers who had spots in the NFL. And it's literally like a bloodline thing. It's a brotherhood within the NFL, which I don't mind. You get what I'm saying? I like the fact that they try to keep it in the family as much as possible. But why does that stop now? Why does the buck stop here with Shedeur Sanders when his dad has done so much? Goodness gracious. Taken at the top 5 in the draft was Travis Hunter. This is a product that Deion Sanders found, crafted, groomed, definitely coached to the point of stardom. We've seen this in the past with guys like Lamar Jackson, where they want the pipeline to continue. Lamar Jackson representing himself, not really having an agent. Shedeur Sanders taking the same route, allowing his father to, of course, lead the way when it came to what will go on with his draft picks. Now, in that, there was mention of the whole Eli rule when it came to the fact that Eli didn't want to play in L.A. at one point, and they said, or whoever it was, I can't remember actually. It was before my time. I don't even think if I was born at this point. But regardless of, there was a situation where Eli Manning was drafted to a team. He said he didn't want to play there. They pulled some strings. He no longer had to play there. He was traded to the team that he ended up playing with. Well, Deion Sanders made mention of that before the draft. And it seemed as if the NFL was really adamant about letting Deion Sanders know, you're not calling the shots. So in addition to not having an agent, in addition to the dialogue happening before the draft with Deion Sanders, and in addition to, let's be honest about it, the privilege that Shedeur Sanders grew up in, it seems like the league wanted to send a message to Shedeur letting him know, you don't run this show. We do. And to be honest with you, when you're working under God's grace, I truly believe that nothing happens haphazardly. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. I truly believe that. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, he was drafted to the Cleveland Browns, a team that desperately needs a quarterback with Deshaun Watson out on Achilles injury. And now he has an opportunity to, be a guy in the league.
That's what we were talking about, that this is actually probably a blessing in disguise for him because he has a great opportunity even though they have how many quarterbacks now? 5?
They do have 5.
But he's still, out of all those quarterbacks, he has a great chance to be the starter. And I think now he has a chip on his shoulder. And honestly, I think as a young quarterback, rookie quarterback in the league, I would rather be undervalued or be the underdog and prove people wrong versus being, one of the top picks and then having to live up to that standards. Because there are so many times we see quarterbacks in this league who are drafted early on. They don't make it very far at all. It's very rare. And so I think this is a blessing in disguise for him. Another thing that rubbed me the wrong way, there were those reports coming out, from executives from different NFL teams, kind of talking about they're worried about how humble or something he is.
Yeah.
That, to me, I can't stand that.
I don't like the attack on his character.
That's
when
the thing, too.
There has never been an issue or a circumstance or a situation where it seemed as if his character should truly be called into question.
No.
All of a sudden, we get into draft season and his interviews are the worst that some have ever been in their history of the NFL. Please. Please.
And honestly, I want a young quarterback to be a little bit cocky.
Ain't no wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it. He's a good quarterback. I think he's the best in this, class. I think he was the best all-around quarterback who was the most ready. He's not a quarterback that you necessarily see him like throwing bombs down the field, and I think that's another issue with teams now. Ever since Mahomes, shout out the Chiefs. Ever since Mahomes came into the league, these NFL teams are looking for quarterbacks who are like that. That's very rare. You're not going to get that. But he's just a composed quarterback who can do a little bit of everything.
Agree. And the fact of the matter was, he did that and he showed that in college with teams that weren't necessarily built out to be the best. You get what I'm saying? For him to have the accuracy that he had, given the offensive line that he had to play with, let's be real. Come on now. Stop snubbing my guy.
Not to switch up too much, but Wits hits.
Wits hit.
Guess who hit?
Wit hit again this week, okay? We got to talk about the numbers.
Wits hits.
We got to talk about the numbers.
My phone's not cooperating.
And when we say Wits hits, we mean more green beans. And if you
a whole bunch of green beans.
A whole bunch of green beans. I need to get in on this because at this point, I'm getting a little
Okay, I have to be honest.
Convinced.
This podcast, I told myself I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I took a lot of L's the past week. So yesterday I was due for a couple hits. I was due for a couple dubs.
And you hit.
I did.
See there? See the green? See the green lines?
See all those green beans?
Hey. Talk to us.
It was a little light work though, not gonna lie. Since I took so many L's, I needed to build my bankroll up a little bit just to feel good about myself.
Okay, bankroll.
So there, just a couple $10 bets, got $45, $40. So I did hit. But Saturday, I'd like to apologize to everyone in the media room who had to witness me lose my bet because Kawhi Leonard sold me. And Aaron Gordon got the game-winning dunk, and I needed overtime so bad. So Kawhi, I needed over 36 PRA. Points, rebounds, assists. Tell me why this man got to 35, then he missed 2 wide-open threes. I was devastated. And so a lot of people...
No, seriously, she was devastated.
Shout out Marcus Thompson. He thinks I have a gambling issue now.
Which we'll get to in just a minute. We have to get
But I would like to
Marcus
apologize
Thompson.
to everyone who saw me stressed out that day. But dang.
Oh, you were close, though.
But I bounced back.
We do, always.
But I will say that bet was for over $100, which would have been real nice.
Oh, that would have been nice, Kawhi. Come on now. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the media room and Marcus Thompson because I also had a moment that night between Marcus Thompson, Steph Curry, and myself, which at
legendary
this point,
moment, shall I
my
say?
Gosh.
I still laugh when I watch it.
You guys may have seen it. So just to give you a little backstory before we show you what we're talking about, if you have not seen it because you're living with no electricity at this point and no social media, we were in the press conference. And as we know, superheroes always show up late to the scene. Steph Curry always takes his time coming into the presser. And this was after the win in Game 3 against the Rockets. So the vibes are good. We're in the press conference room, and Steph comes in, and as he's coming in, he drops his phone. So Marcus Thompson, one of the best, I have to call him a mentor at this point. No, you're okay. Pac is getting adjusted. Pac is getting adjusted if you guys hear a little ruffling and rustling.
I'm so sorry.
Pac is our co-host. Okay. So what happens is when Steph Curry drops his phone on the hard material that the stage is made out of, Marcus Thompson, someone that is a guru in media at this point, I've learned so much from him. He actually came up with
these books.
He wrote those books, but he came up with Erin Witt because our name was atrocious, which we've told you guys before. We have not figured out or gotten the gumption to tell you what it is, but let's focus. So Marcus Thompson notices that Steph Curry has now dropped his phone on the floor. So unbeknownst to me, as I'm asking the first question in the press conference, I'm asking about the great game that Steph had after he went off, and of course, kept the Warriors in the game for most of the game until he got some help from Buddy Hield and GP2 to kind of will them to a win without Jimmy Butler. Okay, mind you, I'm asking this question, and as I'm asking the question, Steph Curry busts out laughing. I'm not understanding why. Well, the backstory is the game before that, Marcus Thompson, being the great mentor that he is giving me the advice that my questions could be a little shorter. Not that they're too long, but I could be a little bit more concise. As you can tell, I like to talk. And so immediately when Steph Curry bursts out laughing in the middle of my question, you can hear me say, "What's funny?" And I'll let you guys see what happened after that.
It's not directed at you. We have a class clown in the building right now.
That's always clowning me,
my
so I
God.
feel like this is directed towards me.
It is not. I don't want to be
joke here.
disrespectful or rude. You asking a very legitimate question, and then somebody in the back of the room is
This my
having their
question
moment.
should be shorter. Is that it? Yep. Okay.
Keep going.
Let me shorten this.
No, I promise you,
You had a
it had
great
nothing to
game.
do with you at all.
Okay,
I promise you, it had nothing to do with you.
I'm saying security.
He is calling my phone because he heard a drop on the floor and trying to distract
my
me.
God.
Sorry,
I'm so
keep
done.
going.
Okay. You had a great game tonight. What happened there?
That's beautiful.
Now, as you can see,
Honestly, it will never get old.
Oh my
I will
gosh.
any day I'm having I will watch that video.
oh my
I send it to
God.
all my family members every
Oh my gosh. Literally, my mom did not understand what's going on because she's not a sports person.
Yeah.
My dad did, but they both found it funny. They know me, and they could tell I was a little flustered in that moment. No one else could, obviously, but boy, was it a funny moment. And I was happy that I could get a laugh out of everyone in the media room, including Steph Curry. However, what they did not understand was I was being dead serious.
Oh, I could tell.
I was really thinking that between Marcus Thompson, who was close with Steph Curry, that they were inside joking on the fact that my question was not short enough. Whole time it was because Marcus wanted the phone to vibrate on the floor, not knowing that Steph had already picked up his phone. And so, boom, there's that moment. Thought it was about me. Middle child syndrome. Wasn't about me at all. And then I made it about me because middle child syndrome. So there you go. That's
I don't
what
think
happened.
you made it about you. I think, honestly, I loved your reaction to that whole situation.
I appreciate that.
Me, I would have just been like, and just shied away. You like stood up to the moment and you're like, no, I want to know what this is about.
It
like,
was
you know,
literally like verbal diarrhea.
and you know what is even more funny? It's the fact that Marcus, I could just hear him in my ear. I look behind and this man is just like,
He is snickering.
so I just start like, everyone's just dying laughing. But I forget too, you're like fairly new to the Bay.
Exactly.
So Marcus, I've seen a couple of these moments where he
And-
gets in these like, you know, and it's
Yes.
just like he's dying laughing.
Yes.
And he just sends everyone into like this.
Yes, a tizzy.
Yes.
And I'm new, not really understanding what the hell is going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not y'all joking about the fact that I'm still asking this
that
question.
felt so bad too. It's
Oh,
like,
he felt so bad. He kept explaining, like, no, it's not about you. And I was like, okay. And I asked the question literally as fast as I could get it out. What people didn't see is that I was shaking like I was freezing in there the rest of the press conference.
Really?
I was literally shivering because it was such a like anxiety overload after that moment. I didn't know that it was a good moment
Yeah.
until the whole press conference wrapped and everybody was like, "Erin, you're so funny." I was like, "Really?
Really?
I'm like
Oh my
losing it over here."
I was like, that was gold.
Yes, and that's when I felt better about it. But in the moment, I was like shaking like a stripper. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you.
That just reminded me of something my mom would always say back in Missouri. She was like, I don't think I can say it on here.
What did she say? What's the PG version?
I'll tell you later.
And maybe it'll make it here.
Right?
Maybe it'll make it here.
Yeah,
On the
maybe.
same episode, we tell you our original name. Which now, of course, as we're talking about the Warriors, I guess we should transition into our next topic. Is the JK era ending?
I mean, I don't see how it doesn't end.
Yeah.
The way that it's played out. And I think Steve has made it pretty obvious without, saying anything bad, obviously, about Jonathan Kaminga. I mean, you can't say he's your future and then him not be getting playoff minutes. That's
true.
just, you can't be like that. And especially with this roster, the way it's constructed with Jimmy, the ball needs to be in Jimmy's hands and the offense runs through him. He's the more experienced player. He's the better player. Jonathan, to be successful, he needs the ball in his hands. And he just doesn't fit with this roster at all. I think they tried it, and I think that they wanted him to be, their future face of the franchise. But it just didn't work out. And honestly, that's how life goes. You know what I mean? Like, people saying, like, why didn't they trade him before? They didn't want to give up on him yet. And I don't blame him for that. And so just how the whole situation has played out, I think this is definitely the end for Kuminga.
And I like how you said
With the Warriors.
That's how life goes. Because truthfully, life is a culmination of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Jonathan Kaminga, last season was an up for him. I mean, it was a down for the Warriors as a whole, but it was an up for JK. He showed that he was an asset to this team. Now, fast forward to this year, of course, he rejected the contract extension that they wanted because he wanted the max. They didn't give him that. He felt undervalued, so he rejected it.
Yeah.
He becomes a restricted free agent in this summer, and I think because of that, we do see him and the era of JK being a Warrior ending. However, like you said, that's how life goes. And when it comes to JK, I don't have any disbelief that JK is a good player. I just don't think he fits the system with the Warriors, especially not with the addition of Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
But I do believe that there is a coach out there and there is a team out there that could really help JK to have a career in this league. And I know a lot of people out there are doubting his ability to actually solidify himself. But let's not forget that in October, which was less than 6 months ago, I should know because it's my birthday. It was less than 6 months ago. He was high on the trade commodity when it came to people wanting JK to come to their team if they were going to give the Warriors anything. Now, Pods was also on that, Brandon Pajemski, but teams wanted Jonathan Kaminga more than they wanted Brandon Pajemski. Now, what we've seen is that obviously Brandon Pajemski has solidified himself in a role here with the Warriors, whereas the addition of Jimmy Butler, the position is just too similar with a guy with more experience and at this point in his career, a higher IQ, and JK has been benched because of it. And that's tough for any player to come to grips with. But like you said earlier, and I'll let you elaborate on this because you know exactly what this is like because you've talked to him a few times one-on-one. I do think he's handling this pretty well.
Oh, he is. And that's one storyline that's been out in the public that I don't like about Kuminga. And I don't think it's so much more so like now as it was before. But there are always rumors, that he's sulking, that it's just the way his attitude. Kuminga could not have a better attitude handling all this. When I see him, in the tunnel and stuff, he's just so polite and he's just singing. And he's handled this whole situation completely different versus, I think it was last season when there was an issue and he was talking to media about he was unhappy with his playing time. But he learned a lesson from that. And he has not been sulking. When you see him in the locker room, he's handled this very well. But I think also he knows that this is it here. And I think he's okay with it. Like, I don't think it's like going to be a, devastating breakup for both parties. And I don't think it's going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not.
It'll be a better situation for them both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And so it's a mutual
Exactly.
breakup.
It's a
type of
mutual
vibe.
breakup.
Yeah.
It's a mutual breakup. And to be honest with you, it reminds me of what it was like for me in college. Let me tell you something. It's so easy for y'all to sit up in the stands or for y'all to sit and watch from your TV screens and judge a guy for how they should feel or how they should react to being benched when they were being labeled as the future of a team at some point. But I remember being in college, and that's when I kind of mentioned in this last episode how my dad was always on me about learning how to have a poker face.
Yeah.
Because I would be on the bench about to cry. The mental game that you have to play with yourself to stay consumed in what's going on with their team, but also stay composed in who it is that you have to be as a player is a tough battle to fight. And I think Jonathan Kaminga is going 12 rounds with that fight. I think he's working really hard to make sure he keeps his head up, he stays focused, and he understands maybe not here, but elsewhere I may make this thing shake.
Oh, definitely. And that's been his attitude, I think, throughout all of this, especially this season. When I talk to him, it's interesting just to see how the season plays out because when I had my one-on-one, during training camp, and I think that's when I saw the most growth from Kuminga because obviously the storyline going into training camp was who was going to be the second scorer alongside Steph Curry. Kuminga thought that could be him, but also he wanted people to know he will do whatever Steve Kerr and his teammates want him to do. Wherever they feel that he'll be more successful to make the team more successful. And I think before, it's like, oh, no, I'm going to come in here and kind of be this guy. But then I think that just showed the growth to this season that he was willing to do whatever, they asked of him. And I think that's showing now.
I truly believe that faith is the evidence of things hoped for and the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So when you're looking at the fact that you're sitting in a situation where everything looks a little bleak right now and it looks a little foggy right now, understand that you have at least gotten yourself to a point that so many men have not been able to reach. And you've done that on one of the best teams with one of the biggest and best histories in all of the NBA. Understand that this summer should not be fun. Understand that more so than having fun, you need to get in the gym and really, really work on your game and kind of allow your game to evolve. Study film, study tape. Become the guy that you saw yourself being before you got in the league because you're here, you've arrived. But now it's about sustaining in the league. So figure out what it is that you need to do by watching your own tape and watching the tape of similar players and understand how it is that you remain in this league with whatever team you go to this summer.
I think he has a bright future ahead.
Agreed.
And I think he can learn a lot of valuable lessons from being in Golden State. But I also think that he has a good head on his shoulders. I think
Agreed.
whatever is ahead for him, I think he'll handle it with grace. In Hawaii, when I talked to him, he kept bringing up his circle. He has a very strong circle around him. So he has a great support system. And I think he has everything he needs to thrive and, be successful in this league. So, believe in you. We have to talk about your guy, Dillon Brooks. He's always on one, but he has been absolutely on a tear this series.
Yes.
And the big topic is him targeting Steph's injured thumb. But I will say, it's just not him. It's defenders in general. And I think it's just being exposed more this series because of how physical this series is. But he definitely has been targeting Steph's thumb. But like Steve said, it's a rule thing. It's not just them, I think, trying to injure Steph, but it's a league-wide issue with the rule because you can hit a shooter's hand after the ball has been released. And so that's what players are doing. And they're going to find ways to
get crafty.
Be dirty without, exactly, be crafty. And Dillon Brooks, man, if there's a player who is
the villain
and gets real crafty, it's Dillon.
I don't hate Dillon.
I know this.
I do not. There is a line. There is a line to being the villain. I do believe the line is drawn when you are stepping over to the point where you're trying to injure someone.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Steph has a sore thumb. We know that he's trying to play through it. And I understand that you don't want to lose, but you cannot sacrifice humanity, in my opinion. Now, let's be real. It is a game. This is sports. But at this point, I always have erred on the side that you don't need to be a dirty player. You don't need to be the player that is out here trying to injure people, because you never know how bad that injury could turn out to be.
Yeah.
And how detrimental that could be. Think about it now. You're messing with somebody's paycheck at this point. And although it's Steph's thumb, and maybe that's not something that would really, really deter his paycheck in any way. I mean, he solidified himself as one of the greatest shooters in the game. The fact of the matter is, if you're a competitor, compete.
Mm-hmm.
Don't compete to harm. I don't agree with that. I do agree with you being the villain. Be the villain. Be the villain.
Speaking of villains, who has been a villain in your life that you?
Oh, I've had so many villains.
Yeah.
Which is why I love the villain. A little transparency here. I had a teammate who I still to this day believe injured my knee intentionally, and I basically cracked my tibia because of it. And my coach found out that I was eligible for a redshirt year that year, and she came to me and she told me, well, we just don't get along well enough for me to want to give you your redshirt year and you play on this team.
Your coach said that?
Yes. She called me in a meeting, and they have all since not necessarily apologized, but shown apologetic behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, called me in the office, and my assistant coach was visibly upset. She visibly didn't agree with what was going on. But I was eligible for a red shirt year, and she said, we don't get along well enough, and I don't want you on my team next year. So you can either take the money and stay an extra year to finish out your degree, or you can give the money up and you can transfer.
Mm-hmm.
I had no intention of being in the WNBA. I had a good thing going in Memphis, my hometown. So I decided to take the money, and I no longer played, which broke my heart, of course, because when you grow up being a basketball player and playing all your life, like, you don't expect your career to end like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very villainous thing to do, especially to a growing young lady who only ever really wanted to play basketball. But essentially, the player that fractured my knee was her niece. And it was tragic.
It was the coach's niece?
Pretty much, essentially, yeah. Not by blood, but by association.
That's insane.
Yeah. I have a lot of stories like that in my life. But it made a dog out of me because I said, okay, I'm no longer playing basketball. I need to make something shake.
Mm-hmm.
And that I did. And I hit the ground running in order to make my journalist career become what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I've gotten this far this fast, because little did I know that the Lord was grooming me at that point to understand that that's just one villain.
Mm-hmm.
You got bigger bosses to fight, baby.
Yeah.
And you got to be ready to understand how to fight them. And it's not always with your mouth. It's definitely not always with your hands, but it's with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to play the game mentally. And I'm still learning how to play chess and not checkers.
Mm-hmm.
But I done had checkmate a few times, I will say. And so, everything happens for a reason. But yeah, that really happened.
Yeah.
And she was a villain in my life at that point. But I like to say nowadays she was somewhat of a hero, because she did me that way, I had to prove that I was something more, something bigger, something better, something greater. And I think all of them would attest to say, yeah, you did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just now starting in my career.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. So that's the thing about being a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes being a villain can spark that person even more to do something better. Sometimes being a villain can work. But in this case, in the case of Shedeur Sanders, in the case of Dillon Brooks, on the opposite end, I think being a villain actually helps those that you're villainizing or that you're trying to suppress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my high school basketball coach got along better years later, but Never forget you, man. I will never forget you. Making us run these things called green monsters, and like he would just set the trash can in the middle of the floor, and we just have to run, go, and it was like during conditioning at the very beginning of the season, run, and we just have to stop, puke, keep running. His idol was Bobby Knight. If you know Bobby Knight, he was known for throwing chairs. My coach loved to throw chairs. Just say, I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but he did a lot that he definitely couldn't get away with now, and he ultimately kind of made me hate the sport. And he was so tough on me, but years later we had a conversation. He's like, because I saw so much potential in you. But there's that fine line that I want people to be hard on me, kind of like you were saying, it makes me better. But there's that line where when it crosses the physicality line, it's like, okay, you're crossing the line a little bit there.
Yeah.
You know the other villain I had in my life growing up? Roosters. I have a lot of beef with roosters. And to this day, I hate birds. I hate birds. Like when I see pigeons on the street
What
here in
did
San
the
Francisco.
roosters do?
Oh,
Whitley?
what did they not do?
Oh my God.
Have you ever been flogged by a rooster?
I have not.
So one of my chores growing up on the good old farm in Missouri, one of the chores was to go out to the chicken coop, and I had to go get the chicken eggs. One, I think if you guys grew up on a farm, it'd ruin a lot of food for you that you eat.
Of course.
Because if you saw what an egg looks like when it comes out, let's just say it's disgusting. And it's gross when you go to the chicken coop. And the entire experience is just gross. Roosters are mean. Like mean. And so I go out to the chicken coop. So I don't know. There's like all these videos. I have to find them online where you see like kids running away from roosters or chickens. So I go get the eggs. And I would just sprint out of, I think it made me like good at like athletic though. I would just sprint out of the chicken coop.
I'm done.
Running full speed, and I would just be screaming with the eggs in my hands, and you just see this rooster chasing me. It would jump on me and like flog my shoulders, like claw me, peck me. They're mean. Like they're so
I have
mean.
never
Turkeys,
had to run from a
same thing. I
rooster.
have beef with you too, turkeys, but like I'm telling you, they're mean.
Oh my
So
god.
roosters are definitely a top villain in my life.
I am
to this day. You never want to experience it.
I have never been flogged by a rooster. It's crazy.
Don't recommend. They're mean. They're very mean.
That is wild. Here I am thinking all they do is wake you up in the morning.
No, definitely not. I wish that was the case. I wish, but
I am done. I cannot. Okay, no roosters.
Yeah, I feel like there was my air it out segment right there.
Well, I do want to air out. Back to Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. First of all, clout chasing is a terrible drug. There were actually 4 other players that were prank called. And so I'm not sure which 4 others that were, but let's just say some of them didn't get drafted at all. That's a heart-wrenching moment for you to get a prank call as if you've been drafted to a team and you've not been drafted to a team. And you've worked your entire life for that. And for people to find it funny online, I just think that's sick. So for everybody clout chasing online, it ain't cute. Let's get another hobby to do. Let's be for real. Find something else to do instead of making fun of somebody or trying to cause strife in somebody else's life, because it's not cute. You'll have a lot more fun trying to make somebody happy. And that's my air it out. The reason why they want to do Shedeur this way is because of who his father is. Well, let me tell you somebody's father. The Southern Heritage Classic at the time, Deion Sanders was the head coach for Jackson State University. And I was a budding journalist in my first couple years in Memphis. In my first year, I think, actually, once I had made it back to Memphis actually my first job as a sports reporter. And I'm sitting in the back of the room because that's where the cameras belong, on the podium, on the risers, while all other press are sitting in the seats. And we're in this press conference post-game for about 15 to 30 minutes. And I'm constantly in the back raising my hand. I'm probably one of 2 women in the room, maybe 3. And I'm constantly raising my hand. But the person that is manning or telling people who can ask a question is not calling on me. I'm constantly being overlooked. And I'm like, okay, like I have a question. And I'm still trying to ask this question. Well, the press conference, the person manning the press conference says, all right, that's it, no more questions. Deion Sanders said, hold on. Baby girl in the back, you've been trying to ask this question the whole time. Go ahead, ask your question. Now, this was actually in lieu of the whole situation that went viral when the guy in a way, disrespected Deion Sanders and didn't call him coach. That's how the whole Coach Prime thing came to be about. Because he said Deion, he said, no, you address me as coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Not Prime, not Deion, not Sanders, but coach, whatever. And he said, I can address you however I want to address you. So it's funny because Deion Sanders made a joke about it, because although I had been overlooked, he said, you've been trying to ask this question. Go ahead and ask your question. I want you to be able to ask your question. But don't ask nothing funny now, because this is what happened last time. I waited and gave somebody a chance to ask the last question, and things went left. Of course, I wasn't going to take it left. I was able to get my question out. But it was the fact that he saw me and didn't allow me to be ignored in that moment that made me feel like I belonged in that room. And that was Deion Sanders doing that.
What I want to air out. Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Specifically voting, but just also the fact that Draymond Green has only won one Defensive Player of the Year award. This year, and I think it's biased too, like I'll talk about with the voting, but just what I've seen Draymond do on a night-to-night basis makes me always say Draymond is Defensive Player of the Year. The way he defends 1 through 5, everything we see him do. But this year, I'm not even going to say Evan Mobley didn't deserve Defensive Player of the Year, because I think he's a great defender. Draymond even said that. He's a great young player. And when Draymond was asked about it, he wasn't like, no, I should have gotten that. He gave all love to Mobley. I just think it's absolutely criminal that Draymond Green, a player of his defensive caliber, who I'll say hands down is the best defender I've ever seen. For Steve Kerr, I mean, of course it's his coach, so you're like, oh, he'll say that. Steve Kerr has played with the best of the best. Dennis Rodman. Like, he's played with all these different players who are great defensive players. For him to say he's the best defender I've ever seen in the world, I just feel like Draymond has got to end his career with more Defensive Player of the Year awards. And it makes me sad to a certain extent, because there was that interview this year where he did, or maybe it was on his podcast, I have to double check, where he said that he kind of felt like maybe this was the last year he had the chance to get it. And for him not to get it, and then I think back to Rudy Gobert, who has 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and the only thing that I think Rudy Gobert is good at when it comes to defense is protecting the rim and blocks. So it's something that shows up on the stat sheet, and the stuff that Draymond does every single night obviously doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to air this out, because it's like I said, it's not even because I think that he deserves it more than Mobley. It's just the fact that Draymond.
Well, I feel like you are airing it out. I feel like you're bringing
It just makes me so mad.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just because I just see him every single night. And one thing with Draymond that I was telling you earlier, when I see Steph Curry go off on offense and he has just one of his huge performances, when Draymond puts on an absolute defensive masterclass, I get chills like watching Steph Curry like go off.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, no. I think you're
Yeah.
making a great point. I think what you're saying about him being Defensive Player of the Year makes sense, because without Draymond's defensive showing in so many games, so many crucial games, they don't have as many championships as they have.
Just the big stop that he got in Game 4, the game-winning stop, and of course Jimmy Butler's rebound was another game-winning.
Yeah.
But Draymond, just what he does on a nightly basis, you don't see that with other players. And he's been doing it for years now. And so I just think it's absolutely criminal that he only has 1 Defensive Player of the Year award. So that's what I want to air out. And Rudy Gobert, how you have 4, make it make sense. But that's besides the point. Draymond would never. Anyways, that's all I got.
That is
how I had to air it out.
Air it out as she did and as you should. That is episode 3 in the can.
Had to think which one we were on.
Me too, actually. It seemed like we've been doing this forever. Well, that's Erin Witt, guys. Come back and see us.
See you next week.